happy to have you. I'm dying to hear everything about you. So let's kind of start backwards. Where did you grow up and what's your story and led you to House of Yes?
Sure. So I grew up in a tiny town of Ontario, New York, near Rochester, New York, is where I met my co founder, best friend at the age of 16 in Rochester in the punk rock ska music scene. From there, moved to New York City at the age of 18, went to fashion school, and a series of very fortunate events led to the creation of House of Yes.
Okay, incredible. So I'm going to back up here. So what you put together is obviously incredible. What really stands out to me is just how big and imaginative and breaking rules and being so brave and just putting art out there. And I'm curious if that was always true for you, or if you were always an artist and putting out expressive versions of yourself, or if that was something that came later.
Was always an artist. Like since I do believe that every human is a creative, and so it really just depends on if that environment is fostering that creativity, and then the materials and mediums you're exposed to can actually direct your expression. So my mother was extremely creative, but in like the homemaker Martha Stewart sort of sector. So I did have access to all sorts of paint and all sorts of eventually sewing machines and materials, which is how I got into making wearable art, which is how I got into fashion school. And so that can kind of, but my mom was always giving us crayons and paper and all that sort of stuff. They had a wood shop and my mom would do craft fairs. And so there's a lot of just hands-on making and creativity in my house growing up.
I was curious because, like, I was thinking about this idea of the inner critic, like something I struggle with in my art that I feel like I don't see from what I see externally of your world is just amazing. Like, it almost feels like your inner world is so big that it's kind of like coming out into reality and blurring lines. And I'm like, I have such a piece of me that's an inner critic that comes up that's like, does my art matter? Does my inner world matter? And so it gets hard to translate that out into the external world. I'm curious if that is part of your inner critic or where your inner critic comes alive.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have an inner critic. Some of it comes in when I have a big idea, and my inner critic will tell me it's too late. You should have started sooner. It's never going to work. You don't have the resources. You don't have the background. You don't have the education. Even though, technically I did not necessarily have the background in education, co-opening a nightclub. Some people go to
Right.
hospitality school. I didn't have a background in marketing. Some people go to marketing school, but I ended up doing marketing stuff. It's funny that the proof, through proof of concept and case studies of my own life, it's like, yeah, you don't need a background, or you just have to learn by doing. But when it comes time to do something new, I'll definitely, yeah, I'll definitely have like an inner critic of who do you think you are to think that you could do that? And so, of
Yeah.
course.
Okay. So backing up to fashion school. So what did you study within the fashion world? Because I was a textiles major as well.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. What classic, women's apparel.
How was your experience? Did you like studying that?
Yeah, to an extent. I felt a bit rebellious and disenchanted. I've always been pretty anti mass consumption, anti mainstream. At that point, I was very anti sweatshop. And so going to FIT, which is a technical school,
Mhm.
I was very much so not really into the whole like, oh, if you just like change the one button once a season, you'll create the illusion of newness to generate more consumption and revenue and purchasing. So I thought that was pretty much bullshit. And I was making things out of trash that I would find in the garment district and making wearable art out of found objects, not necessarily in the technical fashion didn't really inspire me to like be some sort of design, like a traditional designer with a line necessarily. It was cool to explore. It was cool to be in that world for a bit, but I was definitely more of an outsider artist who was going to fashion school. And actually through that, I did find my community through the Freegans, because when I moved to New York, I didn't have a lot of community. I was young, I was 18 or so. Anya moved to New York as well. We both actually went to fashion school. So
Separate fashion schools or the same
we
one?
both went to FIT. We were a
Amazing.
semester, but we were semester apart. And
That's so
so,
awesome.
yeah, it was very cool. And so we turned our living room was our sewing studio, but we were making things out of like random scraps, found materials, thrift store, upcycle, all that sort of thing. So in the garment district, that's where all the sample houses were. And there'd be these dumpsters filled with material. You'd have entire rolls of really a nice, expensive material that would be discarded. So I got involved with the Freegans, and the Freegans basically are dumpster divers, mostly for food. And so when I connected with them, I was like, hey, you can dumpster dive materials as well. And so I hosted what we called at that point Make and Bake, which was a pre-Christmas on-shopping, like don't buy things intention. So we made some yummy food out of found things, and then made some holiday gifts.
That's so fun.
Yeah, so that actually became Make Fun Studio, which became uh, costume makerspace
Okay.
that I would run once a week.
I'm curious, was that something you ran out of your home or you found space for?
Yeah, we ran that out of our basement home at that
Amazing.
point. Yeah, yeah. So having space beyond living space, having a maker space in the home was always a part of the plan, always a part of the New York dream, and that's really what also catapulted and inspired the existence of House of Yes. Because before House of Yes, he and I had a space called Boring Incorporated that was in a basement, and so definitely inspired by an acid trip or two, and so we had this sort of like very large. The main room was our sewing studio, and so we were able to open that up, have people come over, teach people how to sew, help people make their Burning Man outfits, their Mermaid Parade outfits, their even just like alter clothing so that they didn't have to buy new stuff. They could just fix stuff they already had, and kind of like in a way saying fuck the fashion industry, but also saving money and being creative and expressing yourself. So for me, it checks a lot of the boxes, builds community. It's so nice to just be in a space, making friends, hanging out, making stuff with your hand. That's how Anya and I became friends in the first place. So it felt really good. So yeah, that's kind of the primordial ooze and the
I
origin
love, by the
story.
way, just the names of everything you do, Yes, etc., House of Yes, Boring Incorporated, like Make and Bake. So fantastic.
Thank you.
Great naming. Okay. So from this makerspace, I mean, part of what I love about House of Yes and what I resonate with is like a lot of my events background comes from living in an 8-person townhouse in my early 20s in DC. And we were all random people who came together, and it was like this random serendipity where everyone turned into best friends, and we threw these huge parties. And I was kind of the social chair and in charge of putting together these like huge events, which naturally, like to me, had nothing to do with work, right? Like I was like, this is actually the antithesis of work, is me throwing these huge parties. And now this is what I do for a living. So
Cool.
I love that House of Yes has a little bit of that same vibe where it's like the group house, but also these like amazing giant things. And that you guys used to have like, costumes you could get outside and all this stuff. So, all right, transitioning from this space, how did you end up in the House of Yes world where I know there's been several iterations?
Honestly, Anya found the lease first and rocked that for a couple months. I moved into the House of Yes a couple months later. It was the first, yeah, this is the first House of Yes. It was a second floor loft, so deep in Bushwick that it was technically Queens.
Amazing.
So you get to kind of like Maspeth.
What year are we here?
2007 to 2008.
Okay.
So
Amazing.
that place we had our eventually moved the costume studio over there, and we had Make Fun Studio. We had Circus Skillshare every Wednesday, costume workshop every Tuesday, and then a party once a month. And then of course jam sessions, hangouts. We work on our projects. So it was really a creative collective, art space, live workspace, community. About 8 to 10 people living there at any point. Very cool. I mean, renovated, knocked down a bunch of walls. There was a stage in the living room, and that's having a performance space really started, because our previous space, Boring Incorporated, really was living and costume studio. So now it expanded to being more movement space, performance space, and party space. We didn't really throw parties at the previous space. Yeah, it worked out. It was super thriving. And we were also participating in warehouse parties
Mm-hmm.
in the scene, right, as performers. So we started at that point stilt walking, learning aerial, and really developing Lady Circus, which was our circus collective of women,
Again,
girls.
incredible name.
Thank you. And yeah, so that started, and we were collaborating outside the house, but also had our home base sort of headquarters for creativity. And that place burned down in April 2008 from a kitchen fire. And then maybe a month later, we found a building that was dilapidated, relatively affordable. I mean, to us, it did not feel affordable. But we just were like, we'll make it work.
Was it clear to you at that point that you were like, this is the thing, and we're gonna go into it fully?
No, I had doubts when the house burnt down. It kind of, I think we all, when anything ends, there's the
Yeah.
question of, do you want to put the energy into continuing it? So I
Right.
did have a couple days of like, well, maybe I want to get involved in something else. Maybe this is like, is this what we want to do? Not really, but it was clear that there was a new way to do things, with a new space, a new opportunity, and also just leveling up what we do and how we do it. And so the next space had 30-foot ceilings and 2 floors. We illegally built a third floor. But all this it's like high risk, hard work, super creative, super problem solving, extremely
How did you guys
collaborative.
even figure out like how to put together a space like that? Like how to build a third floor? Were you bringing in contractors? Were you guys doing this work?
Yeah, no, we were very lucky to be in the Burning Man community at that point, and you really get to just know people and be a part of the community. So when you need something, people are like, "Hey, I'm an architect. I'll help you." Like they're like, "I'm not stamping this. Like I'm not going to put my name on it, but I'll at least build the plans, and then you can hire some, underground contractor to do it." So we did have some angels every step of the way.
One of the things I love is looking at all of these, not just with you. I mean, I know there's Carl Carlson and your alter ego, but like there's so much of this beautiful, like imaginative and different spaces and performances. And I'm curious for you, particularly when you're switching into an alter ego, is that something that automatically happens? Is there any ritual around it? And do you feel like these are parts of yourself that you're just expressing, or is it kind of taking on someone else's persona?
As far as the development of a character for me, because there's the conception, the birthing
Mm-hmm.
of the character, and then there's the refinement of the character, which comes through like, okay, now I know the wig that works. I know the outfit, I know the posture, I know the voice. Then that character can be embodied. The more you do that character, the more they find themselves. I always have an origin of a character based on the costume, the wig. I mean, hair is a huge thing, and hair and voice, I would say. Like, I do have a pretty malleable face. I have a face that can absorb the character of the hair. Some people like have a very distinct face, and like their face is their face. Like mine, I'm like I can kind of like
The
play.
shapeshifter.
Yeah, I can shapeshift a bit, and so Carl Carlson, he talks like this. He's like, hey, how you doing, guys? Like, what's going on? I had a character named Brooke in Brooklyn, and she was like so long ago. I was just like, oh my God, like I'm Brooklyn, like this potty is fucking amazing. You've like no idea. Had this sort of thing. Candy is more like, hi guys. Oh my God, I am Candy. I am so happy to be on this podcast. I like the sound of my own voice, but like I like better is when other people can hear my voice, because it makes me feel like I'm not alone, because sometimes I talk to myself and that kind of, I don't know, it makes me feel lonely, because I am lonely, but I'm like less lonely when there's like people around. And she's like, and so there's Candy, but Candy developed from putting on just like a blonde wig and a slutty and a it was like a blonde wig and a slutty outfit during like this show we did about sex work, and we had a strip club scene, and then it was backstage getting this outfit on, and she was just like a background. It's just like a background stripper number 5, like no lines, no character. It's just like a to make the scene feel more like a production number. and the character emerged backstage. So anyway, long story short, I would say that the wig and the mirror, like it's my perception of myself looking in the mirror and putting a character being like, wow, I really look like this. And then the character kind of just grows from there.
Really incredible.
Thank you.
I'm like very captivated by kind of acting and performance lately and how people step into roles, what that transformation looks like. And there's so many different clearly interests that you have and so many things you've learned about, from aerials to, you know, performance and to building a space.
Yeah.
I'm wondering like what you're curious about these days, what's sparking your interest and what you're learning about.
I've actually been exploring teaching sacred clowning. And clowning in general is very sacred. So it's almost like, to me, it's redundant. Clowning has always been a part of theater, performing arts. It actually, it kind of like spills off the stage. Clowning is a role in society. A performer is pretending to be something, typically, or performing an act. Clowning transcends a couple of those. It doesn't even necessarily have to be performance. Sometimes it's like I said, it's a role in society. It can be performance. It can be a character. You could be performing as a clown, or some people in our life, they are clowns. Some people are clowns and they don't know it. I do believe that there is an inner grid little clown inside all of us. We have these sort of, you know, like archetypes, like little.
I was going to ask you about this clown archetype and like where that sits.
It's it's very much so a clown archetype. And as I was curious myself, it was definitely a COVID curiosity. I think I had a very simple question, like, what's the difference between a harlequin and a jester? And I went down a rabbit hole and I found one piece that separated it pretty distinctly into 4 categories. And to be fair, there are more expressions. There are as many expressions of clown. But this one broke it into 4, which are jester, trickster, fool, holy fool, if you think about it that way, and the emotional clown. When I teach clowning, I section and use a sort of structure to explore these different expressions, and that's been really fun. Like I've always enjoyed clowning.
I'm interested by this term because I'm like just to back up to anyone listening to this, I hear the term clown, right? And the first thing that comes to mind is, you know, the kid's birthday party clown character, or like somebody who's kind of funny. And so I'm curious about this kind of archetypal study and what you found out about yourself through it. Like, was clown always an archetype that was present for you, or did you uncover that?
I think it's just like creative, just like human beings being creative. I think like there's a clown part that exists in all of us. Like there are a couple different qualities of clown. One of them is they have different perspectives in the status quo. They see things differently. They are also able to express pretty openly. And so if you think about that, you're like open expression, new, fresh perspectives. And for instance, the holy fool always has beginner's mind, sees ultimate possibilities, almost an idealist, sees the world as completely new and also abundant, is not afraid necessarily of the world. Like that foolishness, like you lack the experience, and you have so much, you're so naive that you think everything's fine and everyone's going to be your friend. And that's like, you know, you have the fool stepping off the cliff in a way, right? That sort of, right. So yeah, you have that. If you think about the holy fool, you think about like Jesus, you think about Buddha, right? And this sort of like, it's very enlightened. It has a sort of generosity and openness and a lot of humanity. And so like that's a fool. Jester speaks truth to power, is so sharp, so witty, has the power of language, right? And that's something, if you want to think about how we see it in modern expression, it's a late night talk show host, or even people going on Twitter and using their sarcasm and their wit to call out injustice in the world, or to even rally people around a cause. And so, and of course, like any archetype or any sort of expression, it can have light and dark energy, just like you have the Joker in Batman. You could also have this sort of, I think drag queens are an incredible expression of modern clowning, and using like using a sort of like character and comedy to um, shed light into parts of our society. Whether it's to entertainment is great, education is also great. Sometimes you can, right, you can kind of highlight and pinpoint some things where you're like basically calling out bullshit, make mocking,
I
like
love it.
mockery. Uh, even sometimes drag queens are mocking feminization in a way that actually brings attention to the sexism of of our world, through them being like, well, what do I know, I'm just a dumb girl, and like that's funny, but that's also, it's like, oh, like that is actually how society sees women. Let's pay attention to that. And also sometimes, and if you don't want to go that deep, you're like, haha, it's entertaining, it's good jokes. But yeah, it's a really interesting sort of world that I'm just cracking into, and have started to teach and facilitate workshops and retreats and classes around the exploration of
I can see how you light
clowning.
up. Yeah, you light
Yeah.
up. I actually, this is really interesting to me. I've done a lot of studies of archetypal work, and not particularly like, I don't think I've had the clown archetype come up before. And hearing you talk about it, I'm like, oh, this is like these really sort of brave heroes, but who are also have like a quality of playfulness and funny and inner child, and things around them. Facilitating and teaching around sacred clowning and bringing that to different spaces. I'm curious, in the case of kind of your classic, I'm currently working with tech entrepreneurs. What can they take away from it, and why should they be invested in learning about this as well?
Yeah. So there's a couple things. One of them is clowns are exceptional at fail fast, which I know is a big, right? That's a big tech thing, entrepreneurial thing. So failing faster and feeling really confident about failing is a really cool practice that if you embody it through just like really fun, silly, experiential learning, then when you are in a fuck, like tension, when you're in a tension mode, you'd be like, oh, I'm just failing. Like, let me drop a bucket of water on the floor and then slip in it. Like that's a big fail. And then you learn more about water carrying. It's like fine, just fail faster and fail funner. It's a way to think about it. Even just being in front, even a pitch, man, being in front of a potential investor, partner, who knows, like having to put yourself out there and be seen, any sort of performance work and work about vulnerability and expression can make it so much easier. It can move the needle in as far as when you walk into that room, how you carry yourself, how your breath is open, your chest is open. You are
I'm like,
like,
it's clown power posing.
it's clown power posing, and you're like, you know what? Like I'm totally myself, and I'm absolutely comfortable with the thing. And yeah, so that's a way to do it. Sales, even if somebody isn't necessarily a founder, a CEO, a salesperson can absolutely be used, more confident using their voice and kind of like the enthusiasm. It is all performance if you think about it.
I love that. My last question for you, I'm really wondering about your relationship to burnout. And this is kind of selfishly asking this out of someone who is also, in the creative space, puts on a lot of events, and it's a lot of kind of pouring out all the time. And I get so much out of it, and I'm so in love and alive when I'm at these events. And sometimes when I cue too many in a row, like I find myself hitting burnout. And I'm curious just what your relationship with burnout has been over the years.
I have an extremely intimate relationship with burnout. We are very close. We've known each other for very many years. Um, Fortunately, unfortunately, you learn a lot about burnout. You learn about yourself through burnout, truly. I am currently on sabbatical from House of Yes because I was so burnt out. So
Mm.
I was doing a lot of the day-to-day marketing operations, marketing director, social media stuff. And I was just deeply unhappy. And eventually I wasn't creative. I was bitter. It's really hard to get yourself bounced back from burnout without taking a serious break. Yeah, there are ways to mitigate and minimize so you don't get to the point of burnout, but I had definitely gotten to the point of burnout, and I've been there for a while because a place like House of Yes is nonstop,
Right.
and I yeah, and I got myself into a position where I was super in the weeds, and there wasn't really a clear way to get out of those weeds. And part of it was truly like, I'm an incredible performer, producer, project manager, director. I like creating.
Again, shapeshifter.
Shapeshifter. I'm a shapeshifter. I like creating new projects. I love problem solving in like a build it way. I really like the conception, initiation, launch parts of projects. And then when I found myself in more of a day-to-day operations maintenance role, that is very creative. I have to say, like, marketing is so creative, but it's when it's kind of just like, okay, like make sure that the thing goes out at time and the right on all that. It's a lot of screen time. I have so much respect for people that are good at it and
I'm
thrive
floored
in
by
it.
the TikTok creators because it's like I briefly ran TikTok for a company and it was like the algorithm just preferred quantity to quality. So it was like 3 videos a day, no matter what it is. And I was just
No
like, living
way.
on my phone. And I was like, this is the most unsustainable version of life.
It's pretty dangerous. I would say that
Yeah.
it's something I know some people talk about. I want to add my voice into the noise of saying that, yeah, like digital marketing and social media is it's a coal mine, meaning that it's mentally it's a high risk, mentally challenging environment to work in. That sometimes doesn't get the respect because it looks like whatever, you're just on your phone, you're
Yeah.
just like you're chilling behind a computer, and it's something that you don't realize the mental stress. It actually, like, sitting is bad for your body. I know that so many people do so many computer jobs now. It's not just digital marketing people, but it's nonstop. Some people have roles in companies where it's really clear that, yeah, you're working from 9 to 5, 9 to 7, even whatever.
Yeah,
And
social media, you're on all the time.
marketing, yeah,
Yeah.
like brand being the voice of the brand is like, you can't even if you go on vacation, somebody has to be babysitting the brand because people will take you down on a Saturday afternoon. So you got to be ready to reply, and like, widgets and websites break, you better be ready to
Yeah.
catch that. And it is a high stress role and something I never realized until I had to do it myself, and I was like, damn, this is cool and crazy and effective, and I learned a lot. And I'm also very grateful that I was able to step away.
So I'm curious for you what your self-care has looked like. Like I've found, over the years I've tried so many different holistic modalities and I'm really into bathhouses these days. Those have been
Oh,
my big, self-care moment and therapy and coaching and different things, but wondering what's worked for you.
yes. The things that have worked for me are definitely time in nature. Even if I have to do work, if I am doing that work in a nature setting, I am so happy. Working out, I'm a workout junkie. If I don't work out, I get really, really tense and sad. So,
Movement.
yeah, movement, the cardio is really, really quite good for me. And because of the screen time, which I think most people have a lot of screen time these days. Let's be real. Getting off my phone, I was lucky that I was able to do the Hoffman process last month.
Oh, incredible. I've heard
Yeah,
great things.
it's incredible.
Can you
It's
speak
one.
just a little bit like with what the Hoffman process is, who it's for, who should look at it?
Yeah, it's for any human that it really helps people get unstuck out of any sort of negative patterns. Some of those patterns can be workaholism, judgment, critique, vindictiveness, even like low self-esteem, lack of confidence, overconfidence. Yeah, just if anyone's like, I need a life change, or if they're going through a big transition, like just left a company, just left a spouse, just lost a child, anything. It's really good. It's like when I was there, I experienced a bittersweet sadness because I was like, wow, I just think everybody should do this. And and I was like, yeah, I was like, wow, like it's like going to human university in a week.
Love
You
it.
learn so much in a week. It's incredible. You learn about yourself. You learn a lot of compassion for yourself and others. It's fun. And it's actually like an ongoing practice too. So it's cool. And it's not culty. Some people call it culty. Guess what? It's like the least culty thing in the world. Um, they actually tell people, they're like, we don't need you to invite people to Hoffman. Our wait list is too long. We don't need.
They're like, please don't actually.
Yeah, they're like, they're not like a factory. They're not like a self-help factory farm.
Yeah,
They're more like, they're like,
multi-level marketing.
literally, we're a not-for-profit with like limited space, and
We want to help people heal.
yeah, we want to help people heal. So anyway, that one of the best parts, aside from all of it, was that you're off your phone, no computer, no phone for a week. And so I have been able to have some no phone days, or just chunks of days where I'm like, oh, if I'm going out for an errand and I know where I'm going, and I don't need my maps or anything, I'm just leaving my phone at home. And if people need to get a hold of me, guess what? They can wait. It's fine.
I relate. I try to do as often as I can Friday nights, like phone in a drawer, and I don't look at it till Saturday night. I'm like, it's my
See,
time off, guys.
healthy phone hygiene. I still fall into it. I
It's hard.
you know,
It's hard.
this past week I've been in a scroll hole, and I'm like, what is going
I
on?
have too. I don't know what it is. The last few weeks, I'm like, my brain is a little bit more. I forced myself to like put my phone in a drawer yesterday for 3 hours and like meditate and read a little bit of my Kindle. But yeah, the scroll hole is real.
Yeah, it's interesting. So it's a pendulum, it's a work in progress of balance. Yeah, working it out.
Yeah. So are
Yeah.
you still with the hiatus now? Is there the sacral clowning workshops that you're working on? Is there anything else that you're dreaming up or you're looking at long term?
Yeah, exploring. I like getting involved in projects. So I'm very much so um, launching my own agency, creative production agency.
Is
And
that yes, et cetera? Or that's a separate
so yeah,
project.
that's the House of Yes one, but having like a Kae Burke agency. And
Love it.
so
Love it. Love to
yeah,
hear it.
yeah, it's kind of like more of an
Hmm.
independent operation. And then yeah, seeing where that goes. So there's a couple emerging projects with venues that I can't talk about right now, but they're
Excited.
very exciting.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and very expressive, and really like kind of like new expressions of gathering in nightlife that is beyond dance parties and alcohol. So it's very cool.
I recently went to Othership, which I'm not sure if you've been to yet. It really actually cracked open this concept for me that I've been thinking about a lot, where I'm like, I think this is going to be the next big thing is these like, so Othership, if you haven't been, you walk in and it kind of feels like a nightclub. Like, I don't know if you had that experience, but that I was like,
Yes.
yeah, it has these sort of like really vibey lights going all different directions. And it's a sauna and cold plunge studio and go through the 75-minute experience together. And you feel high off of just the sauna to cold plunge, like the temperature changes. And then everyone's in sort of this intimate clubby environment afterwards, but you're drinking tea, but everyone feels high and you're not going to have a hangover the next day. I walked out of there and I was like, this is the next thing. This is the next it thing is like everyone's health conscious after COVID. But people still obviously are desperate for connection, community, experientials. And I'm like so curious to see like the wellness nightclub uprise, basically.
It's so cool. It's absolutely awesome. So yeah, I've been
Yeah.
twice, and it really made me like cold plunging again.
Me too.
So
Where can people connect with you if they're interested in following along and hearing about these future projects? And then lastly, if there's any like books, podcasts, articles, anything that you'd recommend for people who are interested in learning more about the world of clowning, learning more about things that you love.
yes, absolutely. I would follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm the most.
With our doom scrolling.
Yeah, like interrupt your doom scrolling with a quick visit to Kae Burke. That's KaeBurke. That's where I share stuff, and I'll eventually do a newsletter and launch my things, and people can sign up for it. And as it's emerging, that's where I'll be doing my drops, as they call them. So yeah, so and a book that's pretty that I just got and I'm exploring is called Trickster Makes This World,
Hmm.
and is a sort of like historical and like cultural resource on trickster clowning sort of in society. Check out Hoffman Process. I know a lot of people do know about it in this sort of entrepreneurial world, but if you've like heard about it, I'd say like you guys, like the wait list is so long. If you want to do it next year, if you have to sign up now, if you want to do it maybe next year, just sign up. You could put your name in there. You could always change the date later, but just put something on the calendar.
Amazing. Well, thank you for being here. It's been so great to chat. And thank you for being a creator of so many incredible ways to radically express and learn more about yourself. It's really awesome to watch. So
Yeah, you're
excited to see everything
welcome.
you do.
Yay, thank you.
Thanks, Kay.